for me, yes, I did have family who played not mariachi music, but they played trio music. And that was pretty much all of my life, growing up with parents and an uncle who would do restaurant gigs every weekend. And so from that, that was just part of what I heard at home. It was a beautiful thing to see how that eventually evolved with mariachi music at the middle school level. Who
Yeah,
would've thunk it?
at every family event, the trio would always play.
Oh,
How,
yeah.
that's how we were exposed to it.
The big family.
There was
events,
no,
the big
yeah,
family,
there was
yeah.
no family event that didn't have music
music.
present. Yeah, live music, so it was
I
pretty
know
awesome.
when I first started learning guitar, if I knew 2 or 3 chords and we have a party, Theo Joe and your dad, hey,
Yeah.
come on, John, get your guitar.
Yeah, the
I
family.
didn't know what I was doing, but I was still up there. You
Yeah,
know?
the family is very supportive. They always wanted us to come perform. I mean, I was barely learning, trumpet, how to play it.
Yeah.
And my Uncle Joe was teaching me a song. I don't even remember what song he was teaching me. But it's like, the family was like, come on, get your horn out, boy. Come on, let's hear some music. I'm like, I only know one song. One's enough. Get it out. So they were always very supportive as far as pushing that artistic expression. Like I said, and from the trio, which is Susie's mom and dad and Uncle Joe, that evolved into the family Mariachi Olmos. So the Mariachi Olmos was kind of a culmination of the family and us learning the music.
How the mariachi came to be, the origin story.
So that was part of there was a cultural fair happening at Country Day School in Volver. So a few of us got together, we kind of wanted to represent our culture, and decided we put together a mariachi band. Really not known what we were doing, but we got together. It was Johnny Ray, Jimmy, and myself, and his brother John, got together along with another violin player, Nish Carroll, and a piano player, because we had a piano player back then. We didn't have a guitar, we didn't even know what that was, or what to call it. But we got together, we went to did the cultural fair at Country Day. I believe we got first place.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I think what I remember was funny is nobody knew what to name the group, so somebody who took us down, they took Jimmy's first name, Jimmy's last name, and decided to call us Volver and all. So Jimmy got top billing.
I forgot about that.
Yes, you got top billing.
Well, this is my building then, right?
Lawler and all.
Volver and all.
This is the all right here.
Yeah. So, and then from there, we played at a few other school events around the area. I guess people heard about us.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then the following years, when they brought in,
Mr. G?
Mr. Gradante, artist in residence.
And you're right. That's how I remember kind of where it started. You were like kind of where we were, Mrs. Ramsey in Spanish class. We were all sixth graders then. We were very new to middle school. And so she told us that, they were going to have this cultural fair. And then I just remember that she had this look on her face. We remember, guys, that in the Spanish class, there was those things that lowered from the ceiling and the containers, and they had the headphones you put on, and that way she could hear us, how we pronounced. So she was always listening to me because, obviously I don't know Spanish. But I remember she's got this look on her face, and she says, hey, aren't some of you guys in orchestra and in choir? And in band, not choir, but orchestra and band. And so we're like, yeah. And she says, would you guys think you'd be interested in maybe forming a little mariachi band? She said, like, Mariachi. She said it right, And then we're like, okay. And I said, after class, we went up there, and I told her, what is mariachi band? I don't even know what that is. And then she kind of explained it a little bit to us, and then she says, I'll talk to Miss Crutchfield. Thank you. That's what I've been telling you all that, and I forgot Miss Crutchfield. But she says, but I might not get to her until you guys do, because I think our period was coming up. for orchestra anyway, for the orchestra class. So I remember I got down there and I told her, I says, Mrs. Ramsey wants for us to kind of get together and play some mariachi music. And she said, some what? And I said, well, some mariachi. She said, oh, you mean the ones with the big sombreros? And I'm like, oh, because even me, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what she wants us to do, is to do that. And so they met, and then that's when they came up with the Cielito Lindo for us to play our very first song. And it was fun. I mean, our first time, I remember I just remember we were surprised. We were like, wow, we can do this. I know as a violinist, that was my first experience ever with any kind of band instruments. Because I've never, in school level, you don't sip orchestras until you're like in a symphony orchestra. Then you start having that. And then with guitars, I'd never done anything with those. And I was just remember going, wow, this all fits together.
Since we are in the midst of a high school right now, Northside High School to be exact, what was it like being in mariachi for those of you who were still in mariachi here at Northside? What was that like? What was your experience?
I think by the time we got here, or at least by our junior year, things had changed. And it wasn't so much that we were made fun of or kind of, oh, look at them wearing them crazy clothes.
Yeah.
Or I think the dynamic changed,
Yeah.
and then it became something like, oh, I want to be a part of that. More people wanted to be a part of it.
We've proven ourselves.
Yeah, it wasn't so much of, oh, they're doing that silly Mexican thing.
Right.
It is now a thing. It became, there wasn't the ridicule anymore. It was gone.
Yeah.
It was such a novelty.
Yeah, it wasn't a novelty anymore. It was legit.
We had the first letter jackets for mariachi.
Oh, wow.
We got to the point where not celebrity. That's not where I'm going with that. What I'm saying is that we were known well enough within the school where we were a recognized thing. We were the mariachi.
We were our own entity.
And people respected that. And what was really cool is the parents of the other kids. You could see them. Hey, you need to get up there. You need to learn how to, good friend of mine, Ruben Sandoval. He tells the story, and I didn't realize it at the time, but he said that when he saw us playing, he wanted to play trumpet. That he wanted to be mariachi, and that when he got here, he got one of my old trajes, because he knew it because it said Ricky on the inside of the jacket, and he felt like that was cool because that's what he wanted to do anyway. He wound up playing, and I didn't know that until way after we were out of high school. But I think what's cool about that is, oftentimes, at least me growing up, I got to look up to gang members and guys that were doing other kinds of activities, and those same gang members are the ones that came up to me and said, hey man, you need to stick with that. You don't need to be doing this. You guys are good. Y'all need to stick with that. And in a weird way, I mean, it was kind of like we had respect, for lack of a better word. It became it, and there were some conflicts. It wasn't all roses. For me, I was in regular band and I was in mariachi, and Gradante would be trying to get me to do something, and Calvin would get me to do something else, and Gradante would make my grades come down and hold that over my head a little bit so I wouldn't be able to play with the high school band. I'd have to do something. I mean, it was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I can remember being at Sandy Lake Park and them sneaking me in to play my solo and then sneaking me back out because I wasn't, quote, eligible. It's, statute of limitations is gone now. Yeah. But crazy stuff like that. And you can't be playing mariachi style in marching band. And vice versa. Hey, you're playing. You're not elongating your notes enough in mariachi. You're playing it too staccato. You're doing too much of this or that, and it was kind of confusing. But the cool part is that I was in both. I was able to be in both. And if you'd have looked at my upbringing, there's nothing that said I was going to be a musician. Nothing until I got in mariachi.
I think the first 2 years of my high school were spent at Polytech, because I was part of their magnet program. But I still stayed with the mariachi. I couldn't practice with them on a daily basis, but we'd still have weekend practice and afternoon practice. So I still was part, and when if they performed any functions during school time, you know, I got a deferment to leave Poly to go and then go back. So the bad thing about it is I was the only one. So, so these guys got to come back after doing a performance, and I was the lone ranger going to Poly. But I think what was interesting about that, and it's so funny how the demographics of Poly have changed since I went there, because when I went there, it was 80% black, Hispanic, and then the 20% were made up of Hispanic, white, and Asian. But what was interesting was even there, when those Hispanic kids saw me in my uniform, they kind of had a sense of pride, you know, and even flash forward to adulthood, you know, did a reunion. And it was, what's so funny is when I come to the reunion and sign in, the first thing out of everybody's mouth was, it said Mariachi, and Mariachi, he's here. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know you guys cared that much, but obviously, you know, it impacted them. So I'm really happy now that Poly now has its own program, because it's like, you know, it's just expanded. But then I finished my last 2 years here in Northside, and for me it was a little bit more comforting because I'm here. I can practice with, you know, during the day with the guys. You know, I was more rooted. Being there, I was disjointed, but still wanted to be a part of it, you know, and stick with it. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how people react to the music, and just the fact that, hey, we're keeping the culture alive. You know, it's kind of something that reminds me of when I went to the Jewish Museum in Dallas. And one of the things that they said was, we teach the children the songs. And the reason we teach the children the songs is because as long as our songs live and their voices are heard, our culture lives. We live. We continue to live. So when I heard that, I was just thinking, wow, I never really thought about it in those terms, but yeah. You know, just hearing how people were like, you know, young kid impacted, hey, I'm wearing Ricky's jacket.
Yeah.
First chair trumpet.
Yeah.
So,
What drew y'all to y'all's instruments?
So for me, I got to elder, and I thought I wanted to play trumpet. I wasn't sure. My dad, he was a hard ass, and he basically said that we didn't have the money for it. And there was a rental program, I think, that you could take an instrument home, $5 a month or something like that. And I remember renting an instrument, and I remember practicing when the Saints go marching in. And my dad walks in and he goes, "You're never going to be worth the damn on that thing." And I just kind of looked at him, and he cut a lemon up, and he started eating the lemon, and he said, "Practice." I said, "What?" So he made me play while he's eating the lemon. And if you can imagine, okay, so I'm just going to paint this picture for you. I'm eating the lemon, and now I want you to play an instrument. Some of you are already feeling that little feeling in the back of your jaws from a lemon. That's what my dad did to me, and I didn't get it. My dad died in 7th grade, and what I didn't realize is that he had bought me a trumpet. And I made the commitment then that I was never going to be anything less than first chair. And then freaking John Madrano shows up. And I battled for first chair the rest of my career against John. And we were in our 50s when John told me that he used to keep up with me because he went to Paschal about what I was doing on trumpet, and I would keep up with him about, this is before social media. So we'd actually have to go to the stadiums to hear each other and stuff like that, just to see how we were doing. And that competitive edge, for whatever reason, it changed my trajectory.
I didn't know how he kept up with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It was a push. And hey, however you find it, you find it.
I'd like to share how I came to play the guitar. I grew up in a Hispanic household where mariachi music was playing loudly all the time. You know, that's how my dad would wake us up. And one day I was crossing through the living room and he says, "Hey, ven pa acá." And I'm like, oh, what does he want? Because, we didn't really talk to our parents back in the day. Siéntate. I'm like, oh, what does he want? Then, this is do and re and play it. I'm like, what is that? What is he asking? Ándale, tú puedes. I'm like, okay, Dad. And I'm like, I couldn't do it. So Monday rolled around. I'm like, where do I sign up for that mariachi class? Because he's not going to give me lessons. And you know what? I gained so much more. So that was, that was my blessing, and I didn't know it. And so my dad's 80 now. And, he doesn't move a lot. He's in a wheelchair. Well, because he doesn't. I want to play with him this Christmas. So that's our hope, that we can sit down and create new memories, even though we're all older. But I'm grateful. That's how I came to play this instrument.
So I remember in third grade at Sam Rosen Elementary that we had a strings program, and Miss Arnold was an elderly teacher that came and had a passion for violin, and she had the violins that you could borrow. But my mom was a single mother, and she didn't want to owe anybody anything, and so she didn't want me to borrow a school instrument for the fear that I would lose it or break it.
Yeah.
And so she really struggled with what she was going to do, and obviously it was before social media. I don't know how she found somebody who had a daughter that was no longer using the smaller size violin. She had graduated to the larger adult size, and I got to use that violin as an intro, and had to be trusted enough for a few years before I could get my own violin. But, and I thought it was a trust issue with me, but in reality, my mom couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
And so it took her a while to actually save up to buy it, and I got it for Christmas one year.
I didn't know that Miss Arnold came over there. I was at MH Moore in Diamond Hill, because some of us got, for the magnet program, that's how we ended up over here on this side of town. But she seemed like she was 100 years old, but she was very sweet.
Yeah.
So-
And I remember our parents had to make the little red vests.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we had a white shirt,
Yep.
and
She
black
sent us home
skirt or
with
black
the,
pants.
with the pattern. She gave us the pattern.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
My,
And
and
we
my
had a little
grandmother made
patch.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the patch. Yeah.
Yeah, so like Vicky, I started in middle, at Sam Rosen on cello though. And then, we were going, coming to sixth grade at Elder, and I was terrified of going to middle school. I just was. But my cousins were in mariachi. It's like, I gotta do something there. So I joined mariachi and I started on guitar. And I played guitar for, I think, just the first semester. And I think it was Susie's. Hey, John Boy. You need to switch to guitarron. We need you on guitarron. So what's that? Okay. So here I am, still playing guitarron.
I'm like Vicky and John, started violin lessons at Sam Rosen Elementary, not thinking where it would take me. I think I did the rental too, and Dad and Mom being musicians, I think they got super excited. So we went down to Azle Avenue, the Tennyson brothers had their music shop, and bought my first little violin. Wow. And it was that way ever since. Started J.P. Elder with the orchestra, and then heard of this groovy band that played music that I absolutely adored, and it's history from that point on.
Well, for me, it was listening to my grandparents play Little Joe every Saturday morning and watching the way they would dance together and how happy they were. And I was always attracted to the trumpet. Once that trumpet hit, I knew that my grandma was going to spin. I knew they were going to do their turn. Once that trumpet came on, the smile would never stop. And I wanted to learn to play trumpet. So it's the same thing, we all grew up in the neighborhood. Nobody had any money. And fortunately, we lived next to a doctor who had his son had his own music company. So my mom was talking to him and say, hey, Johnny wants to learn how to play trumpet. He goes, well, Dr. Logan Swords. And he goes, well, there are no trumpets left, but we have a cornet. And I'm like, what in the hell is a cornet? And he brings this one out because this is the actual cornet. He brings it out and he goes, son, it's just a little smaller than a trumpet, but if you play it right, it's going to sound just right. So since then, this has been with me from the very beginning.
Wow.
And it means a lot to see, my friends from back then, because as you all know, we're getting older.
Yeah.
And knowing that we're a part of something special that started off for some of us in a storage closet, being made fun of by the other kids because we were playing mariachi music because it wasn't cool to play mariachi music.
You're wearing these fancy dresses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and to see where it's at now, I mean, we just look at this room,
Or just watching the kids
Or watching the
perform,
kids.
oh my goodness, it blows me away.
blows
I'm
me
like,
away.
whoa,
Such pride. I'm
I don't
just
know,
in
sometimes
awe.
I wonder, what did we sound like? And then
Oh,
I'm
I
like,
know what we sounded like.
Thank goodness there isn't anything to show us what we sounded like. But you know what, we were always shown love wherever we played, They'd feed us, and then after a
Yes.
while, we even got brave enough where, I think after a performance, they would say, hey, we want to go play somewhere. Hey, I know a friend whose brother owns a restaurant, let's call them. And they'd pay us and they'd feed us. Or if the guys wanted to serenade a girl, they'd serenade me. Mija, levántate, levántate. They're serenading you. Mom, they just need a guitar player.
It works.
So yeah, of course, I'm not going to tell them no. Of course I'd go. But it was fun. It was fun getting together, and we'd go Christmas caroling. Yeah, great memories for me. I kind of felt like I never had a best friend in school, but you know what? Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah,
I have some great memories.
right.
We would
still
meet
stay
up at John's
connected.
house at 2 a.m. to get in the van and then go to 15 houses and wake up entire neighborhoods with dogs barking, people wondering what was happening because we were serenading for Mother's Day.
Right?
Oh, that reminds me, Ricky, you remember the first time you and I did it by ourselves?
Yep.
My mom took us, and we're trumpet players, so we would play the trumpet part, and then we'd wait. Because there was no guitar, there was no violin, so the little old lady was like,
She's like,
is there anybody else coming? And then we'd get back to our part, and we'd play the trumpet, and then wait, and then like, yeah, we're not doing that again.
But the other cool part was sometimes especially the older people, they would fill in the gaps. They'd
Yes,
sing,
they would, yeah,
or they'd drum on the tables and whatever.
yeah.
And we got to the point where John, remember that night we started at midnight and ended like 4, and we did 3 songs per house. I think back then we were charging like $150 or something.
Maybe, yeah, something like that.
And for 3 songs,
Dog tired.
and we were dead
Was that for the
tired.
Mother's Day?
Yeah.
I still passed by a house, I'm like, yeah, we played there. And we had to come back because nobody answered the door. But we
And-
played because just in case they were there.
But at the end, we sat there, we counted up the money, and we were like, whoa, wait a minute, this might be something we could do. So, the instrument, I think, picks us,
Yeah.
and what we did with it is what we did with it together. It's pretty cool.
That was what happened to me. I was from a single parent family as well, and my mother, she didn't have any. My mother was a homemaker when my parents. She had no job skills. She didn't have anything to raise us. We just one day all of a sudden were on our own, and so if I had not had a violin in the family, my mother had a sister who played in the Corpus Christi Symphony Orchestra, and she had died many years even before I was born. But the family just held on to it and just thought, well, what will happen? And just like you say, when I started, interested in music and just kind of singing around when I was young, but that's the only instrument that was available. And so had that not have been there, it was, it chose me.
Yeah.
So I picked up the trumpet, and it was, when I wanted to play something in band, I was actually looking for some versatility. So I knew, hey, trumpet, play band music. You can also be jazz. And then, I didn't know at the time it was called mariachi music, I was like, Mexican music.
Yeah.
Maybe if I learn how to play this trumpet, I can join my family. And that was literally, seriously, that was where my mind was at. I can learn how to play these different types of music. And one of them was playing with your father, mother, and uncle. I didn't know that it was going to materialize and morph into this. It was just a thought. It was just a simple thought. And, like everyone else here, my family, we struggled, but you know, my parents always were very supportive and positive people. They grew up hard. They wanted to make our lives easier. You know, bought me a trumpet, and then as I got a little bit older, you know, wanted to get a box Stradivarius Model 37, you know, because that was the trumpet to get. And my father, he found a way to make it happen. Still have the horn. Never parted with it. He struggled, but he wanted to make sure that I had the best, and that was the best. The unfortunate part of the story was that I was in the same band with John Madrano and Ricky Rodriguez, so I had to settle for third. I occasionally got the second chair every once in a while. In a blue moon, I think I got it maybe the second week I was in band, and I think maybe one time in 8th grade. But you know, as I was always following these two guys, and they were just on a different level. You know, one of them just had incredible technique, the other one had incredible sound, and I was somewhere in between. But that was fun.
But you had enthusiasm. I
I
remember
had
you were
enthusiasm.
always,
Yeah.
he always was, you know, enthusiasm. He was always excited about doing it. I just remember you always being that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
true that. I think, looking back, every single one of our parents was present with what we did, and were always there. There was this sense of pride
Yes.
for what we were doing. Like Johnny said, we were playing this music that wasn't cool at the time, but yet there was that draw. It was choosing us in a very special way.
there's a Linda Ronstadt has an album that kind of sums it up.
Oh my goodness,
Here's
we got some
Canciones
great
de mi
memories,
padre.
right?
Canciones de mi padre.
We got
That's
to
exactly
be
right.
there. We got to go to the festival and get on stage with Vargas and have classes with.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, oh my goodness.
Didn't they judge us?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
what, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
early
For sure.
on, right? I mean, went down
We actually performed for Silvestre Vargas
Yes,
because he
we
was
did.
in the audience. And I remember he took a picture with all of us, and he must have been well into his late 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I remember,
It was a little
I
square
remember
violin
this
he played.
from Silvestre,
Yes.
you know, and he would always say, mil gracias, and he would hug, he would give you an abrazo from the audience. And when you got that as you were performing, you didn't need an award. That was Silvestre freaking Vargas, literally telling us that we did a good job. Kind of cool. Mariachi Vargas has, I don't know about now, but then they were the #1 mariachi in the entire world. And they were the ones that took mariachi music to places like Japan, Tokyo. I mean, they were literally global. They were superstars. And Bel San Miguel and Juan Ortiz put together a mariachi extravaganza similar to the one that was done this past weekend. Not to date this, but similar to one that was done recently. And they had a mariachi competition, and who would have thought that some little mocosos from North Fort Worth were going to put a group together and go down there?
have the
And,
guts to even do it.
and you know, and Vargas is your teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're teaching the clinics,
Teacher and your judge.
Yeah.
and they were judging you. And as young guys, when the guys walked in with the topless shirts and T-shirts and all that, remember, I mean, they had no sense. I mean, ethically, it was wrong for us young kids to be exposed to that kind of stuff. But where I'm going with that is that we were treated from day one as musicians. They didn't care about age. They didn't care how hard the song was.
Yeah.
You were going to learn it or you weren't going to learn it, and they'd talk crazy to you. And at the end, it culminated with a performance, and we all nailed it. We didn't know how hard it was. We didn't know that we weren't supposed to know how to do that kind of stuff. We performed at a level that was unreal because Vargas said we could.
Yeah.
Not because we believed it, but they said we could, so we did. Most of us can say that we played on stage with Linda Ronstadt. That's a big deal. And that would have never been possible had it not started at a language fair, Miss Ramsey
Yeah.
project, bump,
Right.
bump, bump. That would have never happened.
No.
Yeah.
I found out in San Antonio that I have an uncle that was a mariachi. I didn't know that. But I recognized him and saw him in Mi Tierra restaurant, and he was in full traje, and turns out he was a mariachi and had been. I met a cousin that was a vihuela player. I have another cousin who is now a doctor. She's a doctor of music, PhD in voice performance, and she got second place. We got third place in that competition. I didn't know she was in the mariachi from Seguin, Texas. We met in San Antonio. I didn't even know that that was part of my history. I didn't find out until I got there because of Vargas. And Vargas used to put on that show every year. I don't know when they stopped hosting it, but I mean, they were incredible.
What are some life lessons that y'all have learned, having been in mariachi, having been played in the music, being a part of something bigger than you that you did not realize until now?
Perseverance. Keep practicing. Keep working at it. And don't take yourself so seriously.
I guess for us as young kids, now, growing up and having to talk, using those communication skills with other people where most youth may not have that exposure to teachings from a world-renowned mariachi group, to meeting other parents, to meeting other student musicians from other schools, and just seeing how it began to snowball over time, and just having that connection, I guess. It's like you've never met a stranger, because mariachi for us just exposed us to so many different people and places where most kids in our neighborhood just stayed in the neighborhood.
Yeah, don't be afraid of it, embrace it.
And music truly is universal, because I can tell you, some of the parties we played at, it wasn't just for Mexican people.
Yeah.
Because white people would get rowdy, black people would get rowdy, and they'd start, letting out the gritos. I don't know if it was our music or the tequila, but it wasn't. That was the other thing, is that it wasn't just for Mexicans.
Amen.
Other people enjoyed it. It was just, getting into it, getting involved into it. So, that was for me, great. When other cultures were getting into it and enjoying it. In fact, who was it that one year we went down to San Antonio? They had a Japanese, what was his name? A charro japonés.
Yeah,
Of course, he only knew one song,
right.
but he sang it.
He sang it well.
He owned it. But La Llorona. He would. I can't remember how many times I heard him sing it, but yeah. But the fact that it's all the way in Japan now, so
And just seeing the diversity, just us being from, predominantly Spanish-speaking neighborhood, to go into Austin or San Antonio and seeing, the white students playing in the mariachi groups. We saw Black African-American students playing. And then, of course, with us, we had Felix Mata, who was half Mexican, half Japanese, and embracing music in such a beautiful way.
Marisa
So-
Dari, she was Lebanese.
Oh,
That's
Marissa.
right,
Marissa.
the
Marissa
Daris.
Daris. I
That's
forgot all
right.
about
That's
That's
exactly
family had a
right.
restaurant, or still does, right?
Yeah.
Somebody told me one time that everybody deserves an opening night performance, and I didn't understand what that meant. I used to complain that we'd get a request for Rancho Grande or Cielito Lindo at the restaurant gigs. And somebody explained to me that for somebody, it's the first time they've ever heard it. So they deserve your best.
Right.
And I thought, man, that's kind of weird. But if I'm honest and I look back, it also taught me that I needed to be ready for that. I needed to prepare for that. And nobody cares that it took me 3 days to learn a part. All they cared about is, could I nail it at the performance? And so whether Daniel could learn it in a half day or it took me longer, it didn't really matter, as long as when we got together, it worked. And I think the hardest part for me to get when I was younger was the practice part. I didn't want to. we were playing all the time, and I got really, really sick in high school, and they told me I could never play again. And I went on to play an additional 13 years after that. And that's grace, but that grace came from putting in the work. And I think in my career, in most of our careers, I think we can all tie it back to the practice part, right? Whatever you do for a living, you got to practice that. And whatever you present to your employees or your coworkers and so forth, that's the performance part. And everybody deserves your opening night performance. And I think all of us have excelled at what we do.
I would say it changed our perspective because I think the first time that we were invited to go to San Antonio, we felt like it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But then we got invited back, and then again and again, and it exposed us to a whole new world that was outside of the realm of the 76106 zip code. And so that taught us to be loftier in our ambitions and our goals. And still believe that for any student, it's always important to not tell them that it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but it's exposure for what's out there that they can attain, after they work for it.
Because John, now this mariachi has traveled
Yeah,
to
so
Europe, right?
Northside Mariachi has traveled to Europe. They played at Carnegie Hall in New York.
Oh my gosh.
Multiple later on this month, right before Christmas, we're supposed to go to Chicago for the Midwest Clinic. It's gonna be cold from what I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've traveled New Mexico, Albuquerque, Las Cruces, all that stuff, San Antonio multiple times. There's always something new, something new, I think. Try to go to Florida, that type of thing, so.
I'm just so proud.
Exactly.
Just so proud of her.
The times that I traveled with y'all, I mean, we didn't get to spend the night at anybody's house. So that one time that I traveled, when we went to San Antonio, I was sucking it up till I saw my parents come. I'm like, you're here. Yeah, because I didn't get to do stuff like that. So, going out and play, whatever hour of the night. It's okay if it's with you guys.
Yeah.
With David, no, you can't stay out late with David. But with the guys,
Entire documentary is Volver, J.P. Elder's story. So y'all were able to go back to J.P. Elder and see where it is now versus where it was when y'all first started. What that experience was like.
I mean, we literally went from a janitorial closet with mops and brooms and stuff that smelled bad to this is a dedicated mariachi hall.
Unreal.
It blows me away. The way JP Elder is set up now, those are different rooms and they expanded and things of that nature. But from where we started, it's crazy. That little traje, if you will, that tells a story in and of itself. And we were a bunch of kids from a quote unquote low to moderate income part of town that got together to do something great.
For me, it was a treat to watch the four trompetas walking up the stairs to room 308 and how giddy they got just being in the room and reminiscing about Miss Ramsey and her vision of what this cultural fair meant to the kids in the North Side. And from that, it has, we're sitting in a room now with trophies all over these walls that represent a legacy of so much talent here in the North Side. And, growing up in the North Side, we didn't know what we didn't have. We knew what we had, and we enjoyed the gifts that we were given and enjoying each other's time and having fun as young kids.
It's a revelation today that it was a janitorial closet, because that's not what it felt like, and that's not what it was when we were there, when that was our favorite time of the day to go to mariachi class.
Right.
We didn't feel shunned or like the redheaded stepchild, that's where our designated classroom was. That was where the ganas came in and the music happened, and the pride swelled when we put on that little vest. And not knowing that we were ever going to wear something with gala.
Yeah.
True that.
It's so weird to see kids from divorced households performing and both parents are there.
True that.
Both of them. Both sides of the family, that they're not, the family unit is not even together now, but yet music brought them back together.
That's nice.
It's, if you step back a little bit, let's just say it out loud. Miss Ramsey was not Mexicana.
No?
She's not Hispanic at all. She happened to teach Spanish to a bunch of kids that should have known Spanish, quote, should have known Spanish.
Right.
And she asked, and she put that thought in our head. We didn't know what we could do or couldn't do. We just were willing to try it. And the willingness has turned into a gift for a lot of families. If you go to any restaurant in the north side of Fort Worth, you're probably going to, a Mexican restaurant, you're probably going to see a mariachi show up made up of kids that have gone through John's program and other instructors' programs, and they're making an honest buck, an honest living as kids. And they're together, and it's something that I think we kind of took for granted because it was just what we did. We kind of fell into that. But when you look at Elder, and you look at here, and then you look at the reach that it's had, and you look at people like El Maestro, John Olmos, that went from writing notes,
Mr. Olmos.
they went from writing notes on a little scratch pad and mimeograph and all that to literally being part of something this big. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of you.
Exactly. He made it his life.
I appreciate it. It's funny to hear. It's funny to hear that, man, because it's just something.
So proud of you, Kenny. We're so
Absolutely.
proud.
Thank you. But it's funny though, because, you know, we went to Elder and we're kind of seeing the rooms, and I don't know what gave me more joy. I mean, seeing you guys, I run into y'all on Facebook or whatever, just different places, different times, and it seems like nothing's really changed. We're just getting older.
Right.
We're still, like you said, familia. We still know each other. Still see, hey, how's it going? How you been doing? Stuff like that. But it was really cool to see when we went into the old mariachi room, the old janitor's room. I mean, it's not what it was before. I mean, they split it into 3 rooms and stuff. I don't know which was better, that or when I brought out our traje. And But as far as me teaching, I mean, that's just something I've always done. I mean, had you asked me right out of high school going into college, hey, you know, what do you want to do? In fact, my father-in-law asked me that. You know, are you going to be a teacher? I want to be a teacher. So I was thinking, I just want to play music.
Right.
And then played music, and then a mariachi opportunity for me to teach popped in. You know, friend, hey, you should do this. I got a friend of mine, Manuel Castaneda. He's a teacher at Meacham. He was leaving on the road to go with Little Joe, and he was doing this gig in Grand Prairie, and he's like, hey man, you should do this gig. You're all mariachi, I'm not. And that's just kind of where it started, and I was like, hey, I kind of like doing this. And then I started my journey of trying to finish college, and here I am. It's led me here, and it's cool. I mean, I enjoy it. It's a great job. I love it. It's stressful, of course. Any job is stressful, but I enjoy it. I love it.
What advice would you give the future mariachi players?
I would tell them that it's more, you know, it's different than if you're an orchestra or band. That it's a way of life. It's a different commitment that you make. There's all this personal involvement with it that you don't feel in choir and orchestra, and that's what it felt to me. Like I was becoming a part of a whole separate organism within the larger part. And so that's what the people need to know now. You need to be all in. if you're going to do this. Be all in or don't do it. Because the groups need you to be all that you're going to be able to be. And they're counting on you. So, don't take this just as an elective. Think I'm just going to, I guess that's maybe the point of doing the auditions. I guess it's screening out those people who aren't. But even then, it's the level of commitment.
I would ask them to keep mariachi music sacred because it should be in their heart. And I think that when we still hear it, there's a fever about it because of the passion that we played with. And I think that's what shone through to our audiences when we performed. And that's what we pick up and get very emotional about when we hear it again. And when we see the younger generations keeping it alive.
That's right.
I would just say that, I can't make you have ganas. You either have it or you don't.
Right.
And to the degree that you're doing this for somebody else, you're never going to reap the benefit until you do it for yourself. I can tell you that music took me away from where I thought I would wind up. Music took me to places I never thought I would go. Music took me to places where I could perform, be rewarded, fed, given money, blah, 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 blah. When we were straight out of high school and we were gigging, I mean, that was our meal money when we were trying to scrape by in college. When I stopped playing, I stuck with music, DJing and producing and, doing events and things like that, but it's all because of what I learned here. And it was an extension of that. Now it wasn't all roses, but we're not doing a before, what happened since kind of expose. But let's just say that be careful with the gift that you're given and protect it.
Yeah.
Do you, don't get me wrong, do you, but protect the gift that you're given. The ganas will come if you practice and you just try it. Several of us couldn't speak in front of people before we got into a group like this. Several of us had anxiety about performance and things of that nature. I can't sing a lick, but I will try because of what this group taught me.
Any final thoughts or comments y'all would like to have?
I think it goes without saying that, it merits recognizing Mrs. Crutchfield, Mr. Burkett, Mr. Gradante, now Dr. Gradante, their vision, along with Miss Ramsey, to have, you teachers just do what they see growth or how to grow something, and I believe that those individuals definitely need their space and their place.
I hope they know. I hope they have some idea of it, and if they don't, they deserve the.
And Miss Arnold.
Yes, and Miss Arnold.
And Miss Arnold.
And as a former campus administrator, I would be remiss if I didn't give credit to Ms. Hada Wright. Mary Hada Wright allowed the teachers to expand to have that program on her campus.
Where was that?
At Elder.
At Elder, okay.
And then Mr. Mauro Serrano here at Northside.
Mr. Serrano.
Mr. Serrano and of course Rose Herrera.
Our trustee.
Who'd have thought that a trustee with the Fort Worth Independent School District would have our back, but did. And I think that's the seed that got planted a long time ago, and to see it now, it's incredible. And I just want to tell you guys that are playing now, God bless you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're so grateful.
Yes, you blow us
Very
away.
much. Oh.
You blow us away.
Never would have
And I'm like,
imagined.
whoa. I'm so proud of you guys. I'm so
I
proud.
mean, they've gone on and above what we could have ever imagined.
Most definitely.
But everything has a beginning. Everything starts somewhere. And we were the blessed ones. We were the blessed ones to be able to put those seeds out there.
Absolutely.
And